Welcome to the deep dive, where we take a stack of your sources, pull out those fascinating nuggets, and we'll basically give you a shortcut to getting informed. We try to uncover surprising stuff, maybe challenge some ideas, and hopefully have some fun doing it.
That sounds about right.
Today, we're diving headfirst into ancient folklore and biblical narratives, too. Our deep dive is specifically looking at Part 3, Chapter 6 of Sir James George Frazer's big work, Folklore in the Old Testament. And this chapter, it's all about Samson and Delilah.
That's right. And it's fascinating because Frazer really peels back the layers on this story, one many of us think we know inside out. He shows how it connects to just a much bigger picture of human beliefs and stories all over the world.
Okay.
So our mission today really is to unpack Frazer's unique perspective on Samson. It's often quite surprising. We'll explore these incredible parallels he finds with other myths, other folktales, and ultimately sort of see what these shared stories tell us, about human nature, and maybe even how we remember history.
Okay, let's dive right in then. This sounds like it might just change how you view one of the Old Testament's most famous figures, maybe one of the most misunderstood, too.
Could be.
So Fraser starts off, right, describing Samson not as this typical, grave judge of Israel. He calls him a burly hero, a strange figure. What's so strange about him, according to Fraser? How does he really see Samson?
Well, it's quite a different picture. The Bible says he judged Israel for 20 years, right?
Mm.
But Frazer points out that, well, none of his actual judgments were ever recorded, not one. Instead, Frazer suggests his real talent, his focus, seems to have been more in brawling and fighting.
Yeah.
Burning down people's crops, hanging around with loose women, as Frazer puts it.
Right.
So right away, Frazer is sort of stripping away that traditional heroic image. He's showing us someone much more complicated, almost an anti-hero, maybe.
So less solemn judge, more libertine and a rake hell. I think Fraser actually uses that phrase, a roistering swashbuckler. Okay, but if he's mainly a brawler, what about his big role? The deliverer of his people from the Philistines.
Yeah, Frazer tackles that directly.
Yeah.
He argues Samson never levied a regular war. He never led some big national uprising against the Philistines. He was more like a solo act, a solitary paladin, maybe a knight errant. And his motivation, Frazer says it was purely from a personal grudge.
Personal.
Yeah, wrongs done to him or his wife, his father-in-law. There's no sense of this high motive like patriotism or some grand strategy. It's all personal vendettas, really, not about freeing the nation.
Wow. That paints him as, Fraser says, an utterly selfish and unscrupulous adventurer, just driven by gusts of fitful passion, indifferent to anything but his own whims at the moment. It sounds like Fraser is almost like debunking him as a hero.
It does sound that way initially.
So where does the heroic part come in then, if Fraser's so critical?
Well, Frazer does admit the story is redeemed. Redeemed from just being a tale of, commonplace rascality.
Okay.
By the elements of supernatural strength, obviously, his headlong bravery, his valor, and also, Frazer notes, a certain grim humor.
Mm-hmm.
And these things, Frazer suggests, they lift the story up. They turn it into something more like a burlesque epic, almost like a comedy, full of these exaggerated feats, the Ariosto maybe, and more like a grand tale than sober history.
Right, right. And this is where Fraser's analysis really opens up, isn't it? He suggests the picture we have of Samson owes more to the brush of the storyteller than to the pen of the historian.
Exactly.
He sees all those marvelous and diverting incidents as popular tales that just sort of crystallized around the memory of a real man, a tough guy, a doughty Highlander, maybe a Hebrew Rob Roy. So a real person at the core, but heavily, heavily layered with folklore.
Precisely. And he's actually quite firm against that whole theory that Samson is just a solar myth. Because his name Shimshon sounds a bit like sun.
Right, I've heard that one.
Frazer pushes back. He cites Sir George Adam Smith, who knew the landscape around Zora and the Sorek Valley really well. Frazer insists those attempts to read Samson's adventures as like phases of the sun. They've broken down.
Why?
Because the details are so specific. The places, the events, they feel very local, very grounded. That speaks to a genuine local tradition that grew up around a real figure. It doesn't sound like vague sunbeam allegories, Frazer argues. Look at the geography.
Got it. Okay, so we've got Fraser's picture of Samson, this complex, maybe non-heroic figure rooted in some reality but covered in legend. Now let's get to the big moment. The one that seals his fate and, crucially for Fraser, opens the door to all these global connections. The Delilah story. How does Fraser set that up?
Well, he recounts the biblical story pretty directly here from Judges. Delilah is pushed by the Philistine lords, bribed with this huge sum, 1,100 pieces of silver.
Which was a lot back then, presumably.
Oh, absolutely. A fortune. And her mission is just relentless. Find out the secret of Samson's incredible strength.
And he plays games with her first, doesn't he? He tries to mislead her, tells her to tie him up with 7 green lines, then new ropes.
Right. And then that really specific one, weaving the 7 locks of my head with the web of a loom.
Yeah. Each time she calls out, "The Philistines be upon thee, Samson," and poof, he breaks free. She must have been getting pretty frustrated.
Totally. The text says her daily pressure, her urging, it vexed his soul unto death. He just couldn't take it anymore. And so finally, he tells her the truth.
The real secret.
The real secret. There hath not come a razor upon mine head, for I have been a Nazarite unto God from my mother's womb. And a Nazarite, for anyone listening, was someone under a special sacred vow, and a key part of that vow was never, ever cutting their hair.
Oh, okay.
And he finishes, if I be shaven, then my strength will go from me.
And then the tragedy unfolds, the story we all know. She gets a man to shave off his 7 locks while he slips. His strength vanishes. The Philistines grab him, gouge out his eyes, bind him in Gaza to grind grain like an animal in the prison. It's brutal. But what's amazing here, and what Frazer jumps on immediately, is how this specific detail strength in the hair isn't just a Samson thing. It connects to this huge web of folklore.
Exactly. This idea that your strength, your very life force, resides in your hair, and losing it makes you weak or helpless. It's far from unique to Samson. Frazer just lays out example after example from all over the world. It shows this idea really struck a chord with people in many different cultures.
Okay, give us some examples. Where else does this pop up?
Well, Frazer takes us to the East Indies, places like Amboina and Ceram. And there, the belief was incredibly literal. People genuinely thought their physical strength was in their hair.
Really?
Yeah, he mentions that criminals being tortured would often only confess after their hair was cut. It was like cutting their hair broke their will, their power.
Yeah.
And in Ceram, apparently young people still believe cutting their hair makes them weaker.
Wow. That's spookily close to the Samson story. What about closer to home, in Europe?
Oh, yeah. Here, especially during the witch hunts, there was this absolutely chilling belief that the evil power of witches and wizards was located in their hair.
Seriously?
Yes. Frazer mentions famous inquisitors like Sprenger and especially this other guy, Cumanus, who was apparently even more thorough. They made it standard practice to shave the entire bodies of suspected witches before torture.
The whole body? Why?
They believed it was the only way to break their magical resistance, their connection to demonic power, so they could actually get a confession. It's terrifying, but it's rooted in that same core idea. Power resides in the hair.
And Frazer even throws in that detail from Scotland, right? North Berwick Church in the 16th century, Satan himself preaching a sermon.
Yeah, supposedly assuring his followers that no harm could touch them so long as their hair was on their heads. It just shows how deeply ingrained this belief was across different social levels and contexts. And we see similar things elsewhere. Bastar in India, witches' power in their hair. The Aztecs in Mexico cutting hair from the crown of the head supposedly removed a wizard's power. The Pills, another group in India, would cut off a lock of a sorcerer's hair and bury it, specifically to sever his link to his magical abilities. It's just everywhere.
Okay, so putting this together, the Samson story isn't some weird, isolated biblical tale. It's tapping into something much deeper, almost universal. This human fascination with where power comes from, how it can be lost, how we're vulnerable.
Exactly. It shows this incredibly widespread belief system, crossing cultures, crossing time periods. It seems to be a really fundamental human intuition that power can be externalized, somehow located in something physical, and often something as simple as hair.
Right.
And then Frazer, he takes another step further. He shows how this idea kind of evolves, gets even more complex, into beliefs where your life or your strength isn't just in your hair, but it's tied to some completely separate object, often hidden away somewhere.
Okay, now that sounds like folklore. Like the story from Nias, that island near Sumatra. About the chief, Labomaras.
Yes, that's a perfect example. His life, his soul, basically, was bound up in a single hair on his head, but this hair was as hard as a copper wire.
Wow.
So he couldn't be drowned, burned, or killed by weapons. Invulnerable. But his treacherous wife, or maybe daughter, the stories vary. She finds out the secret, plucks the hair, and poof, he dies.
That sounds exactly like Samson mixed with something else, these external soul stories.
Precisely. It's a perfect bridge into that whole motif, what folklorists call the external soul. And Frazer immediately draws another parallel, this time from Scotland, the legend of the wicked wizard, Lord Solus.
Lord Solus, okay.
Yeah, he supposedly had a charmed life, couldn't be harmed by normal weapons, rope couldn't hold him, steel couldn't bite him. The only way to restrain him, the story goes, was with threefold ropes of sifted sand.
Ropes of sand? How do you even make those?
Good question. Magic, presumably. But the important part is his vulnerability. How is he finally defeated?
Oh, this one I remember. Boiled. Boiled in lead.
That's the one. Gruesome end.
Definitely not a gentle retirement for a wizard. But Frazer makes a point here, right? Solus was a real historical person, but the magic powers, the boiling in lead, that's purely fabulous, as Frazer says.
Yes, and this is crucial for Frazer's argument about Samson. He uses Solus as a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
Don't just dismiss the historical reality of Samson simply because his story is full of fantastical, clearly unhistorical elements.
Ah, I see.
Frazer suggests that popular imagination, popular fancy, it just loves to weave this many-colored web of myth and legend around real people, especially powerful or tragic figures. It turns them into something larger than life.
That makes sense. It happens all the time, doesn't it? And the parallels keep coming. What about ancient Greece? Any echoes there?
Oh, definitely. Frazer points to tales like King Nisus of Megara. He had a special lock of hair, either purple or golden, depending on the version. His life or his kingdom's strength depended on it.
And let me guess. Daughter trouble.
You got it. His daughter, Scylla, falls for the enemy king besieging the city, Minos of Crete. She creeps in while Nisus sleeps, snips off the magic hair, and boom, Megara falls, Nisus dies or is transformed.
Wow.
Or there's Pteroleus, another king, given immortality by Poseidon through a single golden hair on his head. Again, betrayed by his daughter, Camaitho, who pulls it out because she's in love with the leader of the enemy forces. It's the same pattern, almost beat for beat, echoing Samson.
Okay, this is where it gets really wild, I think. We move from hair specifically to the vulnerability being totally external, hidden away, sometimes in these incredibly complex ways.
Yes, this is where Frazer dives deep into Slavonic and Celtic folklore particularly, and the stories are just amazing. Take the Russian tale of Koschei the Deathless.
The Deathless. Sounds tough.
He is a powerful, evil warlock. And his death, his soul, isn't in his body at all. It's hidden inside an egg.
Yeah.
But the egg is inside a duck. The duck is inside a hare. The hare is inside an iron chest.
Getting complicated.
The chest is buried under a green oak tree. And the oak tree is on an island, Buyan, in the middle of the ocean.
Whoa. That's like cosmic levels of nesting dolls for your soul. How do you even find that?
Well, typically a hero has to go on an epic quest, often helped by magical animals or guides. And usually there's a princess involved, often Koschei's captive, who tricks him into revealing the secret location. The hero finds the egg, crushes it, and Koschei instantly dies, no matter how far away he is.
That's incredible. So defeating the bad guy means basically going on this massive multi-stage treasure hunt first.
Pretty much. And you see similar things in Serbian stories, like a warlock named True Steel, whose strength was in a bird inside a fox inside a mountain, or a dragon whose strength was inside a pigeon inside a boar inside a mountain.
What, all these mountains and animals?
Seems to be a theme. And Celtic tales. Loads of them. A giant whose soul is in an egg, inside a duck, inside a wether, a ram, under a flagstone in his house. Another giant whose life is in a thorn from a blackthorn bush, but the thorn is inside an egg.
Let me guess.
Inside a duck. Inside a trout. In a well or lake. Under a druid stone, buried deep. It's that same intricate, nested vulnerability. It's just fascinating how consistent this complex idea is across these different traditions.
Even in India, right. That story from Gilgit. Shri Balat, the ogre king.
Yes. His soul was literally made of butter.
Butter, how does that even work?
Well, it meant he was invulnerable to weapons, but incredibly vulnerable to heat. Fire could melt his soul.
Okay.
And again, betrayal by a woman close to him, his daughter, this time urged by her husband, the hero. She gets the secret. They surround the ogre's castle with huge bonfires. The butter soul melts, and the ogre dies.
Wow, and the people there still remember it with fires?
Apparently. Frazer mentions they hold an annual commemoration, lighting fires for days to keep Shri Balat's ghost away. It shows how these stories could be deeply embedded in local rituals, too.
Okay, so we've traced this amazing thread. From Samson's hair, through witches and wizards, to these incredibly elaborate external soul stories across Europe and Asia. The theme is clear. A powerful being, a hidden vulnerability, often betrayed by a woman, But Frazer points out a really profound difference in how these stories feel, doesn't he? This is where it gets really meaningful.
Absolutely. This is Frazer's coup insight, moving beyond just collecting parallels. He points out that in the Samson story, as it's told in the Bible, the reader's sympathy is all enlisted on the side of the betrayed figure.
Right. We feel bad for Samson.
Yeah, he's presented, despite his flaws, in a somewhat amiable light. As a patriot, maybe, a champion of his people against the Philistines, we pity his downfall, and we tend to see Delilah's treachery as, well, treacherous. He's the victim, she's the villain.
Okay. But when we look at those other stories, the Slavic ones, the Celtic ones, the Indian one.
The perspective is exactly reversed. That's Frazer's point.
First.
In those tales, the powerful figure Koshe, the giant, the ogre, they aren't sympathetic at all. They're explicitly portrayed as a wretch who abuses his great power for wicked purposes. They're monsters, tyrants.
Ah, okay.
So we detest their crimes. And the woman who tricks them and betrays their secret, we applaud or condone her cunning. We see her actions as justified, even heroic, because she's usually trying to save herself or others, avenging some terrible wrong. She's the hero, or at least on the hero side, he's the villain.
So the same basic plot structure, powerful being, hidden weakness, female betrayal, but the moral roles, the villain and the victim, are completely flipped.
Exactly. And Frazer uses this to make a brilliant point about Samson. He speculates, what if we had the Philistine version of the Samson and Delilah story?
Ooh, interesting.
From their perspective, Samson wouldn't be a flawed hero. He'd be the unscrupulous villain, this foreign marauder who burned their crops, killed their people, caused chaos. And Delilah, she wouldn't be the treacherous femme fatale. She'd be the brave patriot, the innocent victim maybe, who courageously delivered her people from this monstrous enemy.
Wow. That completely reframes it. It really raises questions about how history, how stories get told, doesn't it?
It does. And this leads to Frazer's final, really powerful metaphor for understanding historical figures. He calls them the harlequins of history.
Harlequins, like the jesters and the masks and colorful costumes. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, exactly like that. He says, every man who has made a great figure in the turbulent scenes of history is a harlequin. And the key is his costume. It's party-colored, meaning multicolored, different depending on how you look at him. If you look from the front, or from his friend's perspective, you see one set of colors, maybe white and gold, the hero. But if you look from the back, or from his enemy's perspective, you see completely different colors, maybe black and gray, the villain.
So the same person looks totally different depending on your viewpoint.
Precisely. And Frazer says the job of the truly impartial historian, or maybe just the critical thinker, is to try and contemplate these harlequins from every side, to see all the colors, to paint them in their coats of many colors, acknowledging that they were likely neither altogether so white as they appear to their friends, nor altogether so black as they seem to their enemies.
Wow. What a fascinating deep dive that was, really digging into just one chapter of Frazer's massive work, from Samson, the rake-held judge, all the way to those egg-hiding warlocks and butter-souled ogres. It's so clear that human stories, even when they wear different cultural outfits, are often wrestling with the same deep fears and fascinations: power, vulnerability, betrayal.
Absolutely. And what's really valuable, I think, is Frazer's sharp insight into perspective, how the exact same story structure, the same set of events, can be used to paint someone as a hero or a villain.
Yeah.
It all depends on whose side is telling the story, whose viewpoint is centered. It's a powerful reminder that the facts in any narrative carry a moral weight that's shaped by who's doing the telling.
Yeah. So maybe the takeaway for you listening is this. Next time you come across a figure in history, in the news, even in fiction, who's being celebrated as a hero or totally condemned as a villain, just pause for a second. Ask yourself, whose story am I actually hearing right now? What might this narrative look like if told from the other side? You might find yourself seeing that harlequin, as Frazer puts it, in a completely new, much more complex, multicolored light.
A very useful exercise.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep learning.